If we think about IKEA furniture and maybe give it like a 5 out of 10 on a rating scale as far as difficulty to assemble, maybe it's more like a 4, it really depends. But let's say IKEA furniture is a 5 out of 10 as far as like difficulty to assemble things that come pre-packaged and pre-cut. I would say this is probably a 7 out of 10. And the reason... What's going on, you guys? GT Jesse here, and in today's video I'm going to be unboxing, assembling, and providing first impressions on the RigMetal Plus 8020 sim rig. I am super stoked to be making this video because the RigMetal Plus sim rig has really great reviews. It is a United States stateside company, and the rig is super affordable. For the last 2.5 years, I've been using a GT Omega tubular aluminum cockpit. It served its purpose from an immersion standpoint, but I got it secondhand, so it could be better off for wear. It has some flex to it. I feel like it impacts my lap times, and I'm going to be getting and upgrading from my Thrustmaster T300 ecosystem to a Fanatec direct drive ecosystem in the near future. And so this 8020 sim rig, it's going to really set me up for success when the time comes for me to make that upgrade. So again, this video, we're going to be unboxing, assembling, and providing first impressions on this RigMetal Plus rig. In the future, I'm going to make a follow-up video after I have all of my components switched over from my current rig to this new rig, but we need to do that first, and then we need to give it a little bit of time to use it, get some feedback, and then provide that update. So if you guys have any questions about the rig or the video or whatever it may be, feel free to drop those in the comments below. And if you like the video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more sim racing content like this in the future. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. So it's pretty crazy. These two boxes are the only things that get delivered when you order the rig. And so this first box, you can see it has all of your 8020 aluminum pieces. These are the side profile cutouts. And also the quantities that get delivered are listed there as well. And then the smaller box here, it has all of the accessories, the nuts and bolts, the mounting plate for your wheel, and all the other bits and pieces that you need to connect everything together. And so we'll go on ahead and start with opening the big box, then we'll open the smaller box, and then we'll start getting this assembled. All right, don't try this at home, kids. Go cut through that packing tape nice and easy with our X-Acto knife. Yeah, everything's in there packed pretty tight. We're gonna want to be careful with this packing tape, make sure we don't actually cut through and scratch up the aluminum pieces. But let's go on ahead. We've got a seam right here, so we can cut right through that seam nice and gentle, make sure we're not hitting the aluminum. Seam right here. We'll cut through that one, and a seam right here. Nice and gentle. Oh, a lot of packing tape down here. Now, the way that this is packed, I'm not sure if it matters. The interesting thing is none of this stuff comes labeled from RigMetal. And I don't know if it's normal for 8020 rigs to come labeled. The instructions are fairly detailed, but I took a quick glance at the instructions, and to be quite honest with you, I am not looking forward to this assembly. I have put together my fair share of IKEA furniture. I do all of my own work on my car, do a lot of DIY crap around the house. So definitely have some mechanical aptitude, if you will, but the instructions, they leave a bit to be desired. And so I was in the Facebook group, actually. There's a RigMetal Facebook group. I don't know if it's a Facebook group or a support group. People go through traumatic stress after going through the assembly of these rigs. But basically everybody on that group was saying these rigs take anywhere from 6 to 8 hours to assemble. So we'll see how that goes. I've never worked with 8020 before, and you know, given I've never worked with 8020 before, it's probably going to be a bit of a learning experience. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we've got all of the 8020 pieces laid out, and you can see that some of these are very similar in size. So definitely are going to want to lay all of these out side by side and make sure you get them organized by size before you start working with them, simply because this one and this one, right, it could be really easy to accidentally mix those up as you're going through the assembly. And I imagine if you do that, you're gonna have a bad day. So that's all of the 8020 extrusions. You can barely see on the camera, but this one is a little bit off color. Kind of a bummer, right? It's like a bluish black, whereas the other ones are more of a pure black. It's the only one that's colored like that, so unfortunately, you know, it's kind of a quality control thing. I'm really the only person that's ever going to notice that, but you can see when I get a little bit closer here, the camera picks it up a lot better. So don't really love that, but I'm not really gonna worry about it. Like I said, I'm the only person that's ever gonna notice that. Okay, so these are all of the parts that come in the various boxes, and you can see that Penelope is here and ready to get this thing assembled. But this is the plate mounting, the mounting plate for the steering wheel. You can see that there are nice countersunk holes there, so that's good quality. It's also really thick metal, solid metal. That's not gonna have any flex. There's a few, you know, a fair amount of pieces, but I've honestly put together IKEA furniture that had a heck of a lot more pieces than this. So I'm failing to see how this is going to take 6+ hours to assemble, but I've never worked with this kind of 8020 metal before, you know, and done an assembly such as this before. So who knows? Maybe it will take 6 to 8 hours to assemble. But for now, I'm gonna go on ahead and flip over to the time lapse. You can watch me fight with this thing as I try to get it assembled. And I'll come back on afterwards and let you know how long it took exactly, as well as my first impressions of the completed rig. So let's go on ahead and do that. Like I said, if you have any questions, go on ahead and drop them in the comments below.
I'm so cold, yeah, my heart's sinking like a storm. Cold, I'm so cold, yeah, my heart's sinking like a storm.
sound for DJ.
Probably about 95% done assembling the RigMetal Plus sim racing cockpit over here. And I thought now would be a good time to go on ahead and just pause what I'm doing and provide you with my first impressions on the quality as well as the difficulty to assemble the rig. So let's go on ahead and talk about the assembly first. If I had to give this a rating on a scale of maybe 1 to 10, 10 being the most difficult to assemble, 1 being it comes pre-assembled, probably gonna give this like a 6 or a 7. The reason why, and what I'm using as a basis for a comparison is pre-packaged furniture, right? I showed you in the intro video, these just come in basically a box. It's a box of parts, there's instructions, everything's individually wrapped. If you compare that to IKEA furniture, or furniture that you get from Wayfair or Overstock or Walmart, any furniture that comes in a box, it's going to come with instructions where if you just follow those instructions step by step, you're going to start with a box of parts and pieces and end with furniture. All of the pieces are labeled, individually wrapped, individually labeled, and it's very easy to follow the instructions. We're gonna say IKEA furniture is like a 4 or 5 out of 10, depending on the furniture. This is a 6 or 7 out of 10, simply because it would be right there with the IKEA furniture on difficulty, but it's not. And it's simply because if you look at all of these remaining parts or pieces, nuts and bolts, they're still in their original bags. Not one of these bags are labeled. Now, I am not a professional machinist who knows the difference between this screw pitch and diameter and this screw pitch and diameter. So when I'm reading instructions and the instructions say things like use a 15 millimeter rounded hex head nut and attach it to a 40 millimeter gusset and thread that into a T-nut that is mounted in the 1200 millimeter 80-20 extrusion, that doesn't really mean anything to me. So absent these bags being individually labeled, which would not be difficult, it's pre-printing the labels on the bags, or even just putting stickers inside the bags or pieces of paper inside the bags that have each of these labeled, and then a legend within the instructions that says bag A is this screw and bag B is this screw. Absent having that, I had to pull out my tape measure and measure each of these to know which screw to use on which gusset, and which gusset to use on which extrusion. And that's not a big deal, but my tape measure, which this is a Milwaukee wide blade magnetic 25-foot tape measure. This is probably a $30 tape measure from Home Depot you buy here in the United States. Well, I bought this in the United States, and it uses standard units of measurement because we're in the United States. So everything on this tape measure is in inches and feet. All of the instructions are in millimeters, and all of the bolts are in millimeters. And that's fine, that's acceptable, but it just, because nothing's labeled, I basically had to measure something in inches, get a rough size in inches, and then go on Google and convert it. So that ate into my productivity quite a bit. So it took about 3.5 hours to do this assembly all in to get where it is right now. I still have probably a couple more hours to get everything moved over from the old cockpit, but if everything were labeled the way that it really should be, it takes a little bit more time, I know. And this is a small business, so it's not like there's a huge production facility that's doing all of this, but I would pay a little bit more money to get a lot of that time back if everything were labeled. Beyond that, guys, when you go through to do the assembly, make sure you have a screwdriver that has a 6 millimeter, not sure if you're gonna be able to see that, a 6 millimeter Allen head on it. A normal size screwdriver, not one of those little stubby ones. The reason why I recommend you have that is because there are screws that you have to get into these gussets in the corner. And if you're using just a regular Allen wrench, you've got like 1/8 of a turn that you can do at a time. Whereas if you have the screwdriver, you can turn those in a lot faster. So it's just gonna save you time. It's gonna make your life a lot easier, having the right tool for the job, right? So again, assembly difficulty time, about 3.5 hours to get it assembled. Probably, like I said, 6 or 7 out of 10. Not impossible, but just leaves a little bit to be desired with the instructions. Even though the instructions are pretty good, there's lots of pictures, but just the parts are not labeled. So, there's some guesswork involved. Beyond that, the quality, it is top notch. I accidentally mounted my wheel plate backwards. It's gonna be really easy to switch over, and I haven't switched it yet just simply because when I mount my actual wheel, I'm going to be taking this plate off, mounting my wheel to it and then mounting the plate back on. It's going to be really easy to do, you know, when I go to mount my wheels, so I haven't adjusted that yet. The base for the seat, those I haven't tightened yet, just because I don't know the exact measurements until I get my seat off. I set it in place. This is for the shifter, and I haven't mounted that at all because where that goes is going to be completely dependent on everything else. And then same with the pedals. So the pedals come with these really nice 90-degree clips here. And I haven't tightened those down yet either because, you know, I haven't taken my pedals off. So like I said, we're like 95% complete, but quality of the actual rig is really good. It's like a 9 out of 10. I don't have a lot to compare it to except for my original G29 wheel stand that I got off of Amazon. You know, that's, I'd say, is like a 4 out of 10, right? It's just basic. This GT Omega cockpit, probably like a 5 out of 10. The reason why is just because if you look at where the forward part of the cockpit mounts to the aft part, it's really just these 2 points here. And you can see that there's some scraping here. And basically, as soon as I got these load cells, this started to happen, where no matter how much I tightened this down, it just was not getting enough purchase, and this would slide and flex and really mess with my braking points. So, you know, this cockpit, it served me well for the last couple of years. Really helped a lot with the whole immersion factor. But, you know, as we upgrade our gear, we have to kind of upgrade everything in tow. And so that's where we are with the RigMetal rig. Price point is definitely there. You will be hard pressed to find a better quality rig for the price. And this is in the United States, free flat rate shipping. Really doesn't get any better than that. From the time that this was ordered, we had it within a week. So, you know, that's awesome. Like I said, doesn't get any better than that. So overall, super stoked about the rig. You know, I'm glad that we got it assembled without any major hiccups. The only other piece of advice I would have when you go to assemble the rig is, for the most part, you're going to use the small screws. So if you look at the Allen screws, stumped a whole bag out. There are these longer ones, and then there's not as many of these. And then there are these shorter ones. And you're going to use the shorter ones for like 90% of the assembly. Don't use the longer ones unless you, and keep them out of the way because you'll grab them by accident and use them and then realize they don't work. So yeah, you know, that's basically it. You know, those are my first impressions of the rig. I'm gonna go on ahead and spend the rest of the afternoon getting everything switched over, dialed in, adjusted, and then I'll be back in a couple of weeks with a overall review video after I've had a chance to sit down and actually put this cockpit to the test. So thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, please do hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this in the future.